What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the next episode of the Soundstage here with Kyle. I'm here with the one and only Christopher London. Sir, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic, Kyle. I
Awesome.
hope your day is going well.
Yeah, so far so good. It's a pretty nice day here. It's actually starting to feel a little bit like fall, which is kind of nice. Um, Even though it's obviously been summer for a while. Where I'm living, we were in the 90s up until like last week. So um, it's actually kind of a nice change of pace. We're down in the 70s now. So
Yeah, that's great. I'm a big fan of fall, and
yeah,
winter usually brings us a nice little break, so I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, absolutely. So, Chris, why don't we just start a little bit about yourself? Where are you from?
Born and raised in Detroit, Michigan.
Okay, I see
Um,
representing the Tigers on your hat there. So,
yeah, a little bit more of a hockey fan to be quite honest, but
okay,
this is my go-to hat. But yeah, Metro Detroit area. When people say they're from Detroit, usually what they mean is they're from Metro Detroit, maybe some of the surrounding cities. Uh, Born and raised in Michigan, love it here. Spent some time in California, but I had to come back. So yes, this is
just had
home
a
base.
calling to bring you right back, huh?
That's right, man.
Awesome.
Michigan's home.
Well, that's all right. I have one of my family friends. He moved up there. He's a chiropractor, and he moved up there. I don't know, 20 years ago, and he loves it up there too. So, I've never been myself. I need to get up there sometime, but
When
it's
you're in town, I'll take you to the nearest Coney Island. We'll have some great lunch,
okay.
some good hot
Yeah,
dogs.
heck yeah, that sounds really good. Um, yeah. So, Chris, what got you started in DJing? What brought you in? When did you start? What was the whole thing? How'd you get your start?
Yeah, sure. So, just from a young age, really knew that I loved music. I think my parents knew that. Um, you know, Always moved to music, was dancing around the house as a kid and that sort of thing. And I think in my teens, I started to realize that this is what I wanted to be around. Every time we'd be out and about and I don't know, there's a band playing or whatever, or I can hear a drum set, I want to be around it, telling my
Yeah.
parents, hey, that's where I want to be. I want to be there. Um, at the age of 19, we were kind of messing around in my buddy's basement. He had some turntables at that time. That's when the CDJs were starting to become popular. That's when
Okay.
they had first come out. So messing around on those things, kind of getting our feet wet a little bit. And one of my buddies had a residency at some local bar here in town, and I would go to see him play a little bit, and that's really how it started. I actually started my career, my musical career, if you will, around the age of 20, um, and I started off as a singer. So I was professionally
Okay.
singing at that time. Uh, that stemmed into wanting to do other stuff with music. Then came karaoke, then came DJing, then came singing in a band, and so all the above. That started around like 19, 20 years old. So
Okay.
quite some time ago.
No, well, but the thing that I like about it is that you kind of knew you wanted to do something um with music right away. And I think that's something that is kind of a theme that I've seen throughout these things. If I've been doing more and more of these podcasts, talking to people, is that they really music is at the core of what they are.
Hmm.
Um, and talking to a lot of different people. So I'm lucky. I feel that, like kind of what you said, music moves me. If I'm hearing bridges and builds to songs, I get that tingling down the back part of my spine, and then when it hits that crescendo, I kind of feel it throughout and do the whole thing like that. And I was talking to one of my family members, and I was just like, oh man, this part of the song doesn't just like, get you every time, and they feel the thing. They're just like, what are you talking about? I was like, wait a minute, like everybody doesn't feel that. It's that experience that I think is awesome, and I couldn't imagine not having it. And it actually made me really sad for them that they didn't have it, because
it's
it's such a core part of who I am.
Yeah, I mean it's funny you mention it that way because I literally what you just said was going through my head not too long ago, probably about a week or so ago. I talk to myself a lot, especially in my own head, and
Oh yeah.
this was the conversation I was having. I do feel a little bit of, like you said, sadness for people that don't have that same feeling. It's like, I don't know, some of us. How rated R can we get on this podcast?
Hey, we get it takes us where it takes us. Obviously, don't go too crazy, but
Well, when we were younger, we were experimenting with some stuff, and like
sure.
the first time you felt that feeling, right? Like that is the kind of like the what I describe music and how it heals, right? Like how it makes us feel, how it heals us when we're in a time of like just shitty times. Um,
Hmm.
and quite often I think about the times where hey, I'm listening to a track or I'm listening to a song and I'm like, I either want to tear up or I'm getting those tingles that you just mentioned. But some
Yeah,
people just don't have that, and it's not programmed into their DNA, and it's sad in my opinion. I really wish they could feel what we felt.
yeah,
And I think that's why most DJs do what we do, is because we want other people to feel that, right? So
yeah. I'm trying to make
mhm.
you feel what I feel for music and doing all that sort of thing. And like I said, it just boggles my mind that not everybody has that. And this person extremely close with, and some we just never talked about it.
Mm,
Obviously, they
mhm.
knew that obviously what I did and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And when they said that, I almost started like crying. So I'm just like, man, but that you don't just when that perfect lyric or that perfect bridge or that perfect, the song, the poem, the when that you don't just feel that.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, it's just ingrained in who I am. I mean, even so kind of along with the same thing, even my mother. So whenever you come over to our house, we have home pods all over the place, we have music playing 24/7 in our house.
Nice.
Each one of my kids has their own playlists and that they're playing in their rooms and they're doing it over here. Or, oh, hey, can I play this playlist here? So we just 24/7 we have music going. And obviously my parents and stuff come over and my mom asked me one time, she's like, "Don't you ever just get tired of listening to music?"
No. No.
I was like, "Well, first of all, I have a really weird company if I don't enjoy listening to music." She's like, "Oh, that's true." I was like, "What?" So even my mom couldn't quite understand. Like, no, like it's who I am.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what it is. It's not big on country, but other than that, um, but even some countries, obviously, it just if it's the right thing, it just moves you. So, um, sorry,
They are really good at writing music, I will say that. Country
they
music
are.
artists are fantastic at writing stories.
Yeah, it is. You think about the simplicity of it and think all that sort of thing. It is something to be admired. Like when I go back and I look at George Strait, like,
Classic.
the amount of number one hits that he had and how popular and how many people went to see him in concert, and he literally just stood there and played a guitar. But then, like, because you look at the Eras tour, you
Yeah.
know that production value and all that kind of stuff that she puts into doing that, and obviously she's billionaire now because of it and all that sort of
Mm,
thing. But George Strait isn't hurting for money, and he literally just stood there and played his. I believe he played a Taylor guitar. I could be wrong on that, but he just stood there and strummed his guitar and sang whatever. I think he had 34 number one hits or something like that.
yeah.
34, 35.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's crazy. That actually reminds me, that kind of perform that performance that you just described, uh, another artist, Lil Wayne.
yeah,
Obviously we know Lil Wayne. I was in San Diego at that time. They had brought him, some of the promoters in the city had brought him to do a show at one of the local nightclubs. Lil Wayne was so popular that he just stood on stage drunk eating gummy bears, and people were just thrilled that he
in
was on
awe.
stage. Yeah, you
Yeah,
know. Yeah, so it's crazy. It's amazing how, and that all stems from the music that he's produced and wrote and
yeah,
written, so going back to how powerful and influential music can be. Um Yeah, to where you could just get on stage and just stand there. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
It's pretty amazing. I wish
and
I could
people
show up
flock
to
to it.
my events and just stand
Yeah,
there and just be like,
yeah, just stand
"Hey
there. Yeah,
guys, hey, yeah, right."
yeah. Isn't that what mobile DJ? They just hit play, right? That's all they do. That's all we have to do.
Goddamn button pushers.
We are. That's for sure. So it looks like so you got your start doing in the clubs and sort of things like that. So when did you kind of break off and start doing like events and sort of things like that outside of clubs and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, so it started around the same time, but not as not as dense, not so seriously in the beginning of the career. I would have random friends of mine come up to me, say at a bar or whatever, and say, we just love coming here because you're here. You really make our Tuesday night or Friday night or whatever the hell. God, I had so many different residencies, but then they would randomly ask me like things like, "Well, we're getting married and we're going to do it in our backyard, and we want you to DJ it. Would you DJ our wedding?" And that's when the private events started.
Yeah,
Obviously at that time, Kyle, I'll be honest, I wasn't the most polished wedding entertainer or DJ, and I think most of us go through that learning curve.
yep.
But as the years went on, I started to learn the do's and don'ts, and kind of watching other people do what I do now for a living and learning from them. And it's been, yeah, it's been about 20 years now full time. So it's been a hell of a journey.
That's really awesome. And trust me, I understand where you come from with the not polished. I DJ'd my first wedding as a sophomore in high school. Um, Super not polished. Very much just back and forth with on a. We actually used a powered mixer to these PV speakers that we had, and it was literally fading the small little turn knobs back and forth to go between either one of my iPods and a CD player, or at some point later two iPods. But that was much later because those didn't come out until I was like graduated high school. I'm so old. But no, that's really awesome. And so when you started out, like, did you start out right away with Christopher? Like, what's your DJ company's name? Just
It's Christopher London DJ Service. That is the company's name now. And don't laugh. When I first started, it was C Note Entertainment.
ooh, C note,
Hmm.
very nice.
Which later on I found out is slang for $100 bill.
Just a happy coincidence to begin with, or middle C, or however you want to say it.
Oh boy.
Oh no, hey, um, okay, I'll admit this since it's just me and you here talking. Um, when I first started, my friend and I, like sophomore in high school, we did our first wedding. Um, because we thought that we were super cool. Our our DJ name was Silver Tongue DJ Service.
Ooh, baby.
Yeah, because we thought we were so good on the mics that we could just talk. It's just so ridiculous. I am mortified by now. I'm glad again. It's just me and you talking here that nobody else can hear it. But um, yeah, it was pretty bad. We had a banner made up. Not gonna lie, we totally ripped off the Rolling Stones tongue thing
Okay.
and just used that in the banner that I think his mother sewed for us. Obviously, we made it silver, but
So
it was
she was supporting this cause.
well. I mean, supportive in that I think we kind of just said, "Hey, you need to make this for us," because we were doing a town celebration or something, and so we thought for sure we needed to have like branding,
Mm.
and we were sophomores in high school. I mean, I give myself a little leeway for that, but it was still pretty cringe. When I go back and think about it, not very good. But
That brings up a funny story. I want to tell you this quickly. When you reminded me when you said you had a banner, right?
oh yeah,
So this is hilarious. Do you remember? I don't. You said you graduated high school some time ago. I feel like I'm pretty old, but do you remember a TV show called Love Connection by chance?
I remember hearing of it. But I lived in a very small town, and my family was extremely poor, so we had whatever the antenna could get.
Okay. All
So
right. So Love Connection was a TV show where people would come together and they would try this man named Chuck Woolery
oh
would
sure,
try yeah, he would try to match these people up and be play
yeah,
matchmaker. Well, one day he showed up to my residency and everybody knew he was coming. So I was
okay,
like, "Oh man, I'm going to be on TV, this is going to be big promotion for my company." So here we are with this ridiculously ugly, if you can remember those like kind of like nylon kind of banner material or dude, we had that shit set up behind us while he was at this bar and there were TV cameras rolling, and I was just there with my banner, and I looked crazy, dude. It was C Note Entertainment.
C Note Entertainment.
What?
It's infamous now. I'm gonna have to go on YouTube now and see if you can. You might be able to find that.
Oh, I've never looked.
You
Maybe I
know
should
what?
try.
We might have to look later here in the episode.
Holy smokes!
That's amazing. I think about how cringe it is that we had her make a banner and we thought that we were the coolest things ever, that we were playing for free at our town celebration for the year. Um, yeah, no, I graduated in '02, so I mean I'm
Oh,
pretty old. So
yeah. Well, I graduated in '98, so not too far,
sure.
not too
And
far
my
off.
sister my sister my sister graduated in '98. So um, no, that's hilarious. So Christopher London, are you guys a single op or multi op?
Very small multi-op.
Okay.
And when I say small, there's about four of us that regularly DJ under my brand. Some of my guys have their own businesses. A couple of them do. Um, we also work with musicians a lot, so we've
Hmm.
we've tapped in a little bit into that market. So yeah, we're not by any means like a massive multi-op. I would say we're a small multi-op.
Hey, that's all right. Multi op's a multi op. Still got plenty of stuff to do, and obviously more than enough to keep yourself busy. So that's awesome.
We're trying.
So what is it that you guys do, especially since you're in a, I'm assuming there's quite a few different DJs in Detroit.
Hmm.
Um, what is it that you guys try to do to make yourself stick out from the pack? What is it? Is it the service? Is it the band connections? What do you guys do?
So I would say, I try to, as a business owner, obviously, I like to be tapped in as much as possible to kind of see what the market's like and see what everybody's doing.
Hmm.
I don't delve too deep into that, to be quite honest, Kyle. I try to kind of stay in my own lane and focus on what we do. Not really a big fan of looking to the left or right, but as a business owner, you kind of have to a little bit. For
Sure.
us, what I feel we do that makes us stand out is that you know here, I'll give you an example of this. The other probably like I want to say like a month ago, I had a mother of a groom reach out to me. We do mostly weddings. Um,
Hmm.
she was concerned that the song that she wanted to dance to with her son was just not structured the way she wanted it to be. So the integrity of the song needed to be compromised in order to please mom. And with music production in my background, I did music production for a while there.
Hmm.
I had the ability to go in and kind of restructure the song for her. So even though I wasn't personally going to be the DJ at her son's wedding, one
Hmm.
of my DJs was, but they needed help. I stepped in and made sure that they were taken care of. Um, I think there's something to be said about being there for your clients and your customers, your couples, whoever it may be, in a sense that they feel like they can count on you. They feel like that they're being taken care of. I feel like in today's world, unfortunately, if I'm making a phone call or if I'm putting in a contact form on a website and I'm not hearing back from you in a timely manner, that just tells me you don't really care. If you don't need the business, at least say something, right?
Yeah.
So making people feel like we give a shit, I think is big for us. Not saying that other companies don't do that, but I feel like that's one of our strong suits, and that's because my actual name is behind the name of my company.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big one because, um, like my company, Dietrich Entertainment, I kind of felt that too because I played around with, you know, different logos, different company names, different things, all sort of things like that. And I always came back to, yeah, but I want to put my name on it. And like you said, I think that that's another thing that shows kind of people like, hey, I'm not afraid to put my stamp on this project. This, not that people who have company names don't put their name, put their stamp on it and do well.
No,
Um,
not at all.
but clear, Jesse here, Chris Hintz, there's all sorts of different ones who have just company names and things like that who do amazing. Um, but yeah, I do like that too. Just having your stamp of approval on it, like, hey, I put my name behind this, and I think that's always been a hard thing for me to potentially try to branch out even more. Is because I know that nobody's going to care about my name as much as I do, unfortunately. um, and not that it wouldn't be a good idea. Obviously, you can make more money and grow farther, faster, and all that sort of thing. It's just that's always been a hiccup personally for me. I know.
Well, I wouldn't say I wouldn't call it a hiccup to be quite honest, Kyle. I mean, I think a lot of us have different goals and different views of what we want for our company. Um, some people are just very business minded. They know how to build a business, scale it to the point where maybe eventually they can even sell it, right? Uh, I think I got into this business for other reasons. I wasn't thinking of that stuff when I started my company. I was thinking more of how can I, going back to what we were talking about earlier in the podcast, but going back to the sharing those tingles and sharing the shivers up your spine and sharing those moments musically with people. Who can I gather? Who can I put together as a squad to help do that in our market? And that was my goal. My goal wasn't to reach a roster of 30 DJs and build this multi-million dollar enterprise and hopefully one day sell it. I wasn't thinking about that stuff.
Yeah,
I
sure.
so I wouldn't necessarily say it's a hiccup. I think all of us have different goals, and I think along the same lines as you, I think you and I kind of click in regards to like what we do. We're small boutique, not so, not looking to scale crazy, or we have
Yeah,
our names are behind our businesses.
yeah. No, I think that's a really good thing, and and obviously, like you said, there's more than one way to do it, and I am too. I really just enjoy doing the gigs, being there all the time, making sure that I know everything's going off without a hitch, all that sort of thing. So, yeah, I think that's a really good. I think it's a really good thing that works for me, and I just hope that I can keep doing it for years to come because I still love doing it. So,
Let's rock it till the wheels fall off, man.
heck yeah, for sure. Um, so this is one of the other questions that I like to ask people, and I think potentially I already kind of know based on things you've already said, but really, what is it that keeps you coming back week in and week out? We've been doing it for a long time, 20 plus years. In your case, so what is it? Is it just the connection to the events, or what is it that keeps bringing you back week in, week out?
Oh, that's a great question. I often ask this question to other people, Kyle,
Yeah.
because I'm always curious to know how people keep going. And, sometimes I run into other event professionals and they've been doing it longer than us. And it's like, holy smokes, like what's the secret here? Right. You know, I think there's something to be said about doing something for too long, burnout. That stuff's real. I
Hmm.
mean, it happens. Um, God, there's only so many times I could play Uptown Funk and just put a smile on my face, right? Uh,
Yeah.
so, for me, it's nights like last Saturday, for instance. I will tell you that every record worked. Every single record just seemed to work. Um, it was one of those nights that once I earned their trust, I could literally drop any song in the world and they would stay out there and laugh it off and we would continue dancing and we would have a good time. Going home after an event like that, even after 20 years, just really it's like chasing the dragon, man. I'm on a high again.
Yeah.
So it just keeps me going. It keeps me motivated. It makes me want to do more. But then,
Yeah.
some nights, man, and I'm sure, we've all experienced this as DJs. Some nights it's like pulling teeth. It doesn't matter if you're Tiesto behind the decks, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The weather's nice outside and the people are out on the patio. They're
Yep.
smoking cigars. It doesn't
That's
matter what you're
that's the worst part about fall is that, oh, it's really nice sitting outside, being right next to that fire.
Yep,
Let's just all go outside and talk.
that's right.
Yeah.
And it
No,
doesn't
that
matter
is,
what you're
and
doing behind the decks. It does
yeah,
not matter. Yeah.
yeah. The jukebox hurts. It is, for me. It is so much harder to be a 2 hour jukebox than it is to be like, okay, these people want to rage for 4 hours and trying to get
Yeah.
everybody on. It's so much easier to do that because, like you said, and I feel pretty lucky. This event I did last Saturday too. So recently, well, a few years ago, we moved to a different part of the state, and so I kind of had to start my business over.
Mm.
Um, and we live in a smaller town, and there's a good sized school and everything here and all that sort of thing. But trying to get into the school to have them have me DJ and all that kind of stuff. Because I've had a DJ that they've used for years, and he probably hasn't updated his equipment in 15 years, which that's fine. He's not doing this for the money. He's not a professional. He's not anything. He's a guy that they've always had do it. So he comes out 10 times a year to do stuff for the school. Well, they were just always, well, he just works, and he was charging them like $150 to do it. So kind of hard to break into that.
Sure.
But luckily they got a different sponsor this year who happens to know me and my family, and like, well, no, let's try to get Kyle in there. And so we had their homecoming dance this weekend. And so I brought out, he had brought out 15-year-old speakers that were, still carpeted and not self-powered and all that sort of, so didn't ever look very good and all that sort of thing. Well, I had, totems that glowed. I had my big RCF rig out there and the whole thing. And so I kind of waited for everybody to come in, and I wanted him to be like an experience for him, because I hadn't never really had that. So then I just waited until about 8:15 because they kept just slowly coming in. So I was just playing light background music, but I had turned all my bass all the way down. And then I just came in on a David Guetta drop and just rumbled everything and shook the whole thing, and had strobe lights going when I hit it, and then they were just like and then just for for 3 hours they just jumped and danced and did the whole thing. And we had a couple people at church the next day being like, yeah, my kids they can't walk today because their feet hurt so bad from jumping around and all that sort of thing. So, but again, there's that high that it gives me. Like today I'm still floating for that. And that's gonna keep me going to go to that next one. And now I got to crush this one like I did the last one. And so totally get it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's an unfortunate, you take that momentum into your next event, right? But then you have that rough night, and that's when you got to really, dude, I mean, there's times where like I'll put on like a long track and just go into the bathroom, stare at myself in the mirror and snap myself out of it and be like, listen, we've been here before. Don't take this personal. It's not you, right? Like, and then just really try to just get back up there. I talked to somebody recently, a good friend of mine, Alton Olson. You probably know him from Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
He said something to me that stuck with me, and that was, if you're having a night like that, get behind the decks and just vibe out to yourself. Like vibe out to yourself. Really just get down, start spinning, put your set together, start mixing your tracks together, and just vibe to what you're doing behind the decks. Because guess what's going to happen? When you're vibing, the audience is going to see that, and they're going to be like, well, that looks fun, right? Maybe we should join them.
Yeah, I've also tried to use those, especially since if they're not really into it and going all that sort of thing, I'll also try it to be like, hey, I wonder if I can get away with this. I'll kind of use it as almost like a little mini training session. Like, okay, now after, because we all have those, like, we have our sets. Like, hey, I'll run this into this into this into this. but I've never gone from this all the way to this. Does this work?
Yeah,
Can I make it work?
it's a great time to try that out. Why
Yeah,
not?
because
Yeah,
also because it could just grab them and all of a sudden, oh, that's the thing that brings them out, and it's like, oh, that was different,
sure.
And so I try to do that too, and but I'm the same way. Like I will for once it starts lulling, because this was 2 weeks ago, the
Hmm.
wedding that I did. They were all out there right away, vibing, dancing, going crazy, and then I had like 7 people request a slow song, so I did one slow song, and then nobody came back out. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was
That's
like that for 45 minutes to an hour. But then I just kept grinding, and then that next thing, and then from the end of the night to the rest of the end of the night, then they were good, and they were all dancing, and having a good time. I don't know what it was for that hour, but that whole time you're just kicking yourself like, oh, what did I do?
yeah, yeah. And I think people just sometimes need a break. I think they
Yeah.
need a break sometimes, whether it's like going outside and kind of like getting some air, or going to the bar, or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they do need a break. I think us as artists, or DJs, we're creative people, right? Like we want to put on a show, right? And when our show isn't the best it can be in our heads, I mean, somebody at the end of the night might still come up and be like, "That was a awesome set."
Yeah.
It may not have been the best to us. We
Yeah.
do this all the time. We're out every weekend, but
Yeah.
to them, they haven't heard a set like that in a long time.
Yeah, and I ended up did get which again feels great. I got a compliment, especially from the bride. She's like, "Oh my gosh, that was so much. That was exactly what we wanted." And I was like, "Really? That didn't feel great." Like to me, I'm just like, oh, "Okay."
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Like I'm
I've
so
been there.
glad that you had a good time, but man, I feel like I could have
Mhm.
done so much better for you. Like
Yeah,
you don't say
yeah.
that, but it's those internal things that we think about.
Oh yeah, man.
Um,
Oh yeah, yeah. And sometimes we lose sleep over it. I don't know about you, man.
oh yeah,
I get upset with myself. And I'm
oh for
like,
sure, been there,
yeah.
been there. Um, so when you're thinking about the last 20 years of doing gigs and all that sort of thing, do you have like
Mhm.
a favorite memory or something that just really sticks out to you? Whether it was a moment at a dance or a particular event, in and of itself that you did, um, like almost like a favorite memory. Do you have something like that?
Uh, I wouldn't say one. There's been a few really cool moments. We were in a college town doing a wedding a couple of years back, and this I'm going recent because uh, uh, this is recent. I can
Yeah.
remember. Um, but we were in a college town. We were doing a wedding. My assistant was with me, and again, it was one of those nights, man. Every record worked, and it was like I wasn't just spinning wedding shit. I was
Yeah.
spinning stuff that I love. Like the housey, EDM type stuff, old
Yeah.
club stuff that I used to DJ in clubs. So to me, it was a really fun wedding. At the end of the night, they were literally chanting my name, and it felt like I was like, that
You were Tiesto that night.
yeah, I was Tiesto that night, right?
Yeah.
Um, One of the bridesmaids had come up to us, and I'm happily married, and have a son, and I would never change that for the world. I love my wife, love my son, but one of the bridesmaids had come up to us and was like, "You guys should come to our after party." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, right, cool." Kind of laughed and giggled, right? And then something that night, I looked at my assistant and I go, why the fuck not? Why don't we just go to this after party and
Yeah.
do
See
it, right?
what's yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, I texted my wife and I told her, I was like, I'm just gonna be a little late, just gonna go to this little after or whatever. And it was the coolest thing, man. Like we showed up to this after party and people were literally cheering because we were there. That felt really good. Now, I'm not by any means like saying that I want every wedding to be, or event to be like, oh, I'm there and you need to cheer me on, right? Like I could care less about that. I want,
But it feels good.
but it feels good, man. It felt
Yeah.
really good, and I thought that was a really really cool moment. Yeah.
That is really cool, and it is when you get those compliments. It does, and I don't think there's anything wrong with enjoying it. Like there's a reason that we do it. There's a reason. There's a in my mind, there's a selfish reason why we want to be out performing in front of people, having people have a good time because of us. You know, Obviously, I kind of think a lot of it like stand-up comedy. Like you're just kind of out there on an island by yourself. You're not putting words together to tell a story, but you're putting songs together to tell a story, to push the vibe for the night, to have a good time for a few hours. It to me it's very similar in the craft. Like you have to practice or you're not going to be good at it. You have to do sets at home that don't make any sense so that when you go out there it makes a ton of sense and everybody can go on that journey with you. You know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I mean, excuse me, if you look behind me here, I've got my setup and I do
Yeah.
that shit all the time, man. I'm always just putting songs together and being like, oh, that sounds like shit. I would never do that in public,
Yeah.
right? Like, or this, oh, that was dope, right? Like I would do that. Practicing is very important, even at some for somebody like myself that's been doing it for 20 years. There's no excuse not to practice, because you can't go into every single event and say to yourself, I'm going to DJ this one just like I did the last one because the last one was a rager. You
Yeah.
can't, if you approach every event the same, it's a big recipe for disaster in my opinion. So
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Not only because people have different tastes and music and all that sort of thing, but it's never the same exact energy. Even if you're just like, oh, wow, this bride has the same energy as this bride. Okay, I think this will work really well. You might be able to get away with, some of the same
yeah,
songs and
you
all that
get
kind
a
of
little
stuff.
close.
Obviously,
Yeah.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can get very close, but it's never going to be exactly the same
Nope.
because the second you do something this way, like, oh, this one worked this time, I bet it'll work this time without really thinking about it and just doing it.
Yeah.
You're gonna go, and then it's just gonna be crickets.
Do you
And then you're
play
like,
do you play video games at all, Kyle? Are you a gamer?
um, I have some gaming systems. I have a Switch, I have a PS5. I'm not very good at it
Okay.
because I didn't grow up doing it. Um,
Are you familiar with Call of Duty, like
oh
the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
multiplayer?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so a good example is a multiplayer lobby. The
Sure.
reason why most people, and I was this person, I'm a huge gamer and produce music for video games and such, but you know, back when I was playing Call of Duty a lot, those multiplayer lobbies that you would end up in were never the same.
Yeah,
Every game is a different game because every player is going to do something differently, and
yeah.
it's a different experience every time. So going into events, I kind of have that mindset. I
Oh
just
yeah,
kind of
I
reference
think you have to, like, hey, sometimes like you said, sometimes we parachute over here, but next time we need to let's try over here to see if we can get a better result and all that sort of. Yeah, that's a never had thought about it that way. That's a fantastic way to think about it.
take it from a
Um,
gamer. I don't know,
no,
right?
absolutely, for sure. I don't know. You might be too far the degenerate, a gamer and a DJ. I don't know. Might be a little bit too far.
What I aspire to do.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. All right. So no, that's awesome. I love, getting to know a little bit about you, all that sort of thing.
Nice.
You got a couple DJs with you. So now let's turn around and let's dive into what's some of the equipment that you use.
Yeah, sure.
So let's start with audio stuff. What kind of speakers are you running?
I've been using RCFs for a long time. So when you mentioned RCFs earlier, I kind of got happy there because
Yeah.
one of my DJs, he's one of our newer DJs to the roster. He actually just bought some. Is it the ARTs?
Art
ARTs?
series. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, art series. And he's really happy with them. I've been using, God, I was using Evox 8s for a while, and then I upgraded to the Evox 12s. RCF has just been my favorite sounding speaker, and that's what we've been using for over a decade now. Before that was
Okay.
JBL, but we're talking, God, man, we're talking in the JBL Eon 1 days.
Oh yeah, the Eon threes and all
Yeah.
those. Yeah, where they had
No.
the big Eon across the
Yeah,
grill and
yeah,
everything.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it said Eon right on the grill. My
Yep.
God, those were ugly gray cabinet speakers. Yeah, I
Oh
remember
yeah,
that.
for sure. Yeah, we used some of those when I first started DJing in sixth grade. The first set of speakers we used was these are all because they're all ones that are school owned. Somehow we talked our music teacher into letting us use them to DJ with for school dances. Actually, the first ones that we ever used were Sonic, and I don't know why, but they were actually really good sounding speakers.
Really?
Yeah, they had pretty decent bass for a set of school speakers. And the vocals weren't too bad. And then they went to the JBL Eons, and they didn't want us to touch those because those were super expensive and everything. But No, definitely that. So, did you use RCF in the club, or you just came across them and really liked them, or how did you get hooked on RCF?
In the nightclub scene, we were not using RCFs. We were using QSC was like a really popular brand, very very incredible sounding speakers. But the moment I was turned on to RCF was when, excuse me, I went to a fellow DJ's home because he was selling his.
Okay.
Um, he literally put me in his garage, shut the garage door, and was like, "Listen to this." And I heard the Evox 8s for the first time. That was a little over a decade ago. That was my first interaction. That was my first, exposure to the RCF series. And man, I loved the way they sounded. I bought them off of him.
Mm-hmm.
They were used, and I spent more than what most people were spending on brand new speakers,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a reason for that. So, um, ever since then, you know, growing the business and scaling a little bit, just doing more events and more high end events, I wanted to have something bigger, something better. So what did I do? I went to the Evox 12, and that's what I
Yeah.
use now. Yeah.
And are you obviously you're liking them?
Oh, they're great. They're fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great sounding speakers.
they are really nice. I had a set for a long time. Actually, it ended up getting so to go to this bigger set that I just got now. I ended up selling those, but I use them for a long time and use them for a lot of different events. They're really good. Um, so was it just because you'd had that really good experience with the Evox 8s that you decided to go to the 12s, or did you hear them and you wanted to get them, or
We were at MEX. I think it was. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was MEX where they had the different sound rooms set up, and
mm-hmm.
Bass Boss was there, and Evie was there, and all these other guys. But I think that's the first time I heard the 12s in person, and I was like, you know what, these sound fantastic for our application for what we do.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. Once we start getting to the events that are, in the upwards to 3 to 4 or 500 people, obviously maybe we're going to think of a different speaker or solution. But
Mm-hmm.
even then, I mean, even if you placed two of those out front, by the dance floor, and then it had a bunch of fills on the sides of the room, you could even maybe get away with something like that.
Oh yeah. I use RCF 12s just because I wasn't 100% sure on the scale of the part thing until it happened. We were doing like a back to school thing, and they said, "Oh no, like a couple hundred kids come to it every time." There ended up being like 950 kids that ended up coming. Now
Holy shit!
with the Evox, like the base, clearly the base wasn't enough.
Sure,
But the nice thing about those is that the columns were so tall that I just put them up as high as I can and just was able to shoot over top of everybody, so everybody could hear at least.
sure.
Um, and there's like, well, can you have more bass? I'm like, not really. I don't. We were out on a football field, and so the
Oh
sound
boy.
carried well, but the subs weren't even close to enough. But people could hear it, so
Yeah.
yeah. I always swore by those speakers too. I really enjoyed them. Although this new system I have is a little crazier than that.
What are you using now? What is it?
Um, so the ones that I got, so they're the brand new. They're the NX 945s
Oh boy, I think I've seen these before actually.
and 8004 subs. And just for reference, it was still hard to hear in the room, because again, like I said, I wanted to kind of show off a little bit as hey, you guys should always have me back here. So I went pretty hard with the thing, but even on the dance floor, they were in a hard time hearing themselves, and I was at about -6 on my mixer.
So you still had more headroom on those speakers and you were rocking it.
Yeah, and so I also found that those tops, the NX 945s, have a lot of headroom. Because while I was kind of warming up and doing the whole really testing everything for the room and all that kind of stuff, at one point I was able, once I got to 0, I was able to get the subs to kind of limit just a little bit,
Okay.
but the tops weren't yet.
Mm.
So I'm just like, I don't really want to get another set of 8004s, but if I want them to really match the tops, I might have to.
Mm.
Because the 945s are those things, they scream.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same issue I had. So I also had the TT 808 and 515s.
They had
Lo-
those. They had those at the at MAX, I believe.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I really liked them. Um, the issue was the top. And what I mean by that is the top was so good that it really outshined the 808 subs. And it still does to this, again, to my ear. You need, because I did at an event where a friend of mine, Jesse, he had the 808s also. I used his subs and my subs with the tops, and I still felt like I could have used more bass and not more.
Wow.
It's they're just so good.
Those are that system starts out at like 12 grand, doesn't it, or somewhere around
Well,
there?
it's not quite that. It's I think if you buy everything at mat price, it's probably about 10.
Okay,
And like don't get me wrong, the 808 they sound great, especially for a dual 8-inch sub. It sounds really good,
sure.
but the 515 is fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's the as weird as it is, that's the problem. Is that the top is just too good for the sub, and it just kind of outshines it. And so I ended up trading that and the Evox 12s for this big system.
Nice.
So it ended up working out really well for me and them because they didn't need quite as big of a system and had a Evox 12s and wanted another set and then wanted another thing for smaller systems. So it worked out well for
There
us
you go.
both.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know if you're the same way, but for me, man, I I remember being in the nightclubs, and I remember the best sounding sound systems, and it's stuck with me ever since. And sometimes when I'm on private events, I'm like, man, I just really wish I had that, you know.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But like I said, for our application and for what we do, I don't want to be showing up and blowing grandma away, and she's
Oh no, no, no. That's for school dances,
oh yeah,
town like outdoor town like
yep,
that's not a wedding thing for me.
no,
I'm
no,
I'm
no,
very
no.
much I have J8s and Evolve 50s for that.
There
That's
you go,
plenty.
perfect.
That's good for those. So that's a lot of stuff so that's on the speakers. So what do you mix on?
Rain One currently.
Okay.
Before that was what you see behind me, which I believe is a DDJ-SX2 by Pioneer.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Super popular.
yep. Before the Pioneer was Technique 1200s. That's what I started playing on.
Okay.
So I really just missed my records, the turntables, and I just looked at everything that was out there probably about a year and a half or 2 years ago. And when I saw the Rain One, I'm like, this is pretty much the closest thing I'm going to get to records, or vinyl,
Yep.
right? So
Hmm.
that's what I went with. I like the platters on them. They're just like turntables. They're just like techniques. Um, but that's what I'm using at events right now.
Hmm.
It's a lot of fun to use. I wish the platters were just a little bigger, because the records were a lot bigger. Uh, but it works. It's good for what we do.
Yeah, no, that's good. And obviously keeping stuff to size, is a really good thing
Mhm.
to do. So what else so what do you have those in? Are you running a coffin or
Oh, it's in a Danny Max booth.
okay,
Yeah, so
awesome. You have the Infinity, right?
I have the Infinity or Edge L, I think it's
Oh,
called.
okay. So you have the full box.
Yeah, that was God, I bought that Max booth, I want to say like 3 years ago now.
Yeah,
It's been like 3 years. There've
yeah.
been so many like other variations of
There's
what
been a
he's
lot of
done with
different
those.
variations. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that. I think it was I bought my Danny Max. I had my Infinity
Mhm.
at one of the first DJ shows he went to. It was at Midwest DJs 2021, I think.
Oh man. Okay, yeah.
Um, and we were in the like all the vendors were in the room with us in a real basically half or a quarter of the space that they have now. And he was off in the corner, and we both went up and looked at him and just played around with them, and we're like, yeah, we got to have these.
Yeah.
So so we plopped and we bought them right then and there. It was pretty awesome, but um that's really sweet. So and what do you do for lighting then?
Currently using for myself, excuse me, myself, I'm using the Astera AX1 pixel tubes. Um, and these again, these were bought, I want to say like 3 years ago. There's a couple of
Hmm.
guys in our market that actually have Asteras. They're built like tanks.
Oh yeah.
If anybody else tells you, hey man, these other pixel tubes are just as good, that's a crock in my opinion. I think these things are just built like tanks. I think they're going to last forever.
So what do
They're
you run?
super
What do you
bright.
run yours with?
Just the app that it comes with.
Okay, like on an
Mhm.
iPad or
Yep, yep,
okay.
yeah.
That's what I was wondering because I have a buddy who has them, and yeah, he does have an he has an issue with one that just doesn't ever want to charge right and all that other kind of stuff. Um,
It seems to be that seems to be a common problem. Actually, I've heard that before.
okay.
I don't know why that is, but I can tell you the ones that work are just fantastic. Super
Oh yeah,
super
yeah, yeah.
bright.
They're crazy bright, and you
Yeah.
can do a lot of really cool things with them and all that. So are you guys standard across the board, or does everybody have slightly different stuff as they're going
That's
through?
yeah, so that's the thing is that, everybody would it be nice to be uniform and have everybody have the same stuff? Yes, it would be. Uh, I also, again, when I started this business, I wasn't thinking of like, oh, we're going to scale, we're going to be this, crazy
Yeah. Uh-huh.
multi-million dollar company. I want people to feel like they can perform at, with what they would like to perform on, who they are as entertainers. I don't sit here and say this is how you got to start every wedding announcement or
Oh yeah.
anything like that. Yeah, so everybody's got their own gear. Some of them have followed suit and said, "Oh, you know what? Those Pixel tubes look really cool." And one of my guys got Pixel tubes from another brand or whatever. But he's going after the same look. So no, we are not uniform all the way across the board. But I kind of let the guys do what they want to do.
Yeah. I think that's a really good idea. Just kind of let them be comfortable with what they are.
Hmm.
Um, so do you have like a favorite piece of equipment? Like, of all the stuff that you have, hey, you know what? I just love this thing. I couldn't imagine doing a gig without it, you know.
I will tell you that the EWD series from Sennheiser, the microphones,
Hmm.
are probably one of my favorite pieces of equipment because you don't have to scan; it automatically does it for you. They sound great, and I've never had a problem with those things cutting out.
Yeah. Sennheiser makes some really good microphones.
Yeah,
I still have my EW 100s, which was a series before that.
yeah,
I still don't have issues with them, so I have a hard time. As a matter of fact, somebody broke a transmitter, and so I just bought. They're uh, they're getting harder and harder to find because these are all discontinued now.
sure, yeah,
Um, so I think I have 7 of them. I have a lot of different of those, and they're just same thing. They're tanks. They keep working,
yeah.
and
You're a collector now.
yeah, I couldn't imagine. I'm not gonna enjoy when they start to go because then it's gonna be I gotta buy everything all again. But it eventually happens. So
Yeah.
um, you are the first person who said that their microphones might be their favorite piece of equipment. But I think that's a really good thing because like when you're doing ceremonies and all that sort of thing, it's a really important piece.
I'm curious, what are other DJs saying? Is it more along the speakers side of things, or is it
A lot of them are like controllers.
controllers? Yeah.
They really like their controllers. Lou Paris is a little different. He really likes his digital mixer, which
Okay.
I understand because he does a lot of crazy stuff with microphones during ceremonies and stuff. Like
Yeah, he's a nerd.
sometimes he does like 8 microphones. It's like that's insane. Good for him for offering that to his clients. That I wouldn't even want to get into that for a wedding, let alone a stage production. Um, but yeah, it really kind of depends. It's so weird. It is a very personal question, like
Mm, mm,
because of some of their speakers. Oh, they really care about sound, or it's their mixer. Well, they really care about the feel.
yeah,
Microphones, or like how everything sounds. Want announcements people to hear. So, it's a real personal thing. So
sure. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Um. So, are you a person who tries to upgrade very often, or do you just kind of let stuff slide?
It depends what it is.
Okay.
If it's something that I'm not using often, uh, and it's sitting, whatever in the warehouse or for most of the year, then yeah, I'm gonna let it slide for a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something that I'm using quite often, I try to stay relevant and up to date to
Sure.
what's going to be the best in regards to performance and such.
Yeah, for sure. So how do you make that decision? Like when to buy it, when you start looking, all that sort of things. Like how do you make that decision?
Impulse.
Sure. Well, you are a gamer and a DJ, so impulse is probably pretty high on your priority list.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, you see a friend or whatever has got this new piece of gear, and you're like, oh, okay, and you go and
Yeah.
try it out and whatnot, you know. But there's a little more tax write-offs for the business, and
Yeah.
that's an excuse to buy gear, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's a tax write-off. I think that's the Small Business Administration. I think that's their catchphrase. It's a tax write-off. It's okay. No, that's so do you have anything that you have your eye on? Like, hey, I really want this, but it's just it's not really in my budget right now, or I can't really make it make sense for me to buy it. Something like that.
Actually, I do. I'm a really, really big fan of the Toad booth.
Okay.
I think it's a great look. I think it's a great idea. I think it would cut your setup and teardown time tremendously. The Danny Max booth has cut it down a little, um, but I just don't think just having everything in that one box, man, that would be awesome. The thing about that is that I don't tow a trailer. I get really, really frustrated in city traffic, so I don't want to be the guy that's getting out of my car and being like, move so I can move my trailer in, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the problem, is that thing needs a lot of storage, and to
Yeah.
haul that thing, you definitely need a trailer, or like, say, a Sprinter.
Yeah. Makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
You can get them into like a minivan, but you'd have to get like the 43-inch one, the real small one. But you can, like Jesse here, he actually got his,
He's got a Ram, doesn't he? I think.
he does now. But he used to have and he still has it as a backup. He has a handicap accessible van with a wheelchair
Oh,
ramp,
interesting. Okay.
and he was able, with his 55, he had about this much room on either side to get it up and in, and it would sit there, and then he could close the door, and it mean literally this much to either side,
Wow.
but it fit.
Convenient.
Yeah, it was extremely convenient because he measured it. He's like, I think it'll fit, and then he ordered it, and then he's like, oh wait, because he didn't account for the ramp to come back up. So he wasn't. He's like, oh no, it might not actually fit. So I might have bought this and I don't have anything to haul it
Way
with.
to go, Jesse. I love it.
But luckily he had given himself enough leeway that it did fit.
That's awesome.
So it worked really well for him. And yeah, and I have, I've said this, everybody's heard it verbatim on here, but I have one. I love my Danny. I use it as much as I can, but the Toad is just so spoiling.
I'm sure it's a game changer. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just like, like with the one that I did on Saturday for that school dance, I had to make special trips for 4 gigantic speakers, and I was still able to be torn down and out of there with everything loaded in my trailer in like 40 minutes.
That's gold. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I wasn't hustling, and it was just me just taking my time doing stuff kind of nonchalantly. If you really want to bust, you can get done in 10, 15.
Yeah, I think there's also something to be said about being alone and not having somebody with you. That is a lot of work sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And what I found, and I've quite often talked to my DJ friends about this, is that on days like that, Kyle, by the time it's time to DJ, and I've done all that shit, and my body's hurting, and I've been in the sun all day facilitating a ceremony or whatever the case may be, I'm tired, man.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, damn, I just really don't want to DJ right now, and that sucks. I hate
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
anything to make it easier, man. I always
Yeah.
have my eye on.
Oh, and it is a big expense, which is something that my business partner, my wife, we talked about quite a bit. Is so what I make her do is make me justify to her everything that I'm going to buy and why. And her thing is never to say yes or no; it's just to ask me questions. Because she's a teacher and she teaches like in debate class and stuff, so she always has all the arguments ready to go,
That's great.
which is great. But where I came to on the Toad and what it really ended up doing for me is I bought time.
Yeah.
And so having a kids, I have 4 kids now. Uh,
Got your
being
hands
able
full.
to, yeah, well, being able to not be dead tired
Yeah.
because it took me an hour and a half to unload and do everything and just load it into the like now, like I said, I can load everything in the trailer. I can come home, I can park it, lock the trailer, and I don't have to worry about it until I got to prep for my next gig and then move stuff around if I need to.
Yeah.
But it buys me hours and hours every week.
Yeah, man. That's
And
that's
so
that's priceless. That's awesome.
yeah, and that's my thing, is something that you can't really buy is time, but I feel like I did because I took stuff off my plate.
That's a good purchase.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a
To
good
me,
purchase.
it's been nothing but good stuff. So
What's your wife's name, Kyle?
Shelby,
Shelby is your B team. Do you know what your B team? You know what B team is?
I mean, in a sports sense, yes, but I'm assuming it's not in a sports sense.
So your B team, everybody's got an A and a B team, right? Your A team is your buddy, that's your yes man, right? Anything you say to your friend, yeah, dude, let's do it. Let's do it. Yes, absolutely. Great idea. Yes, yes, yes. Your B team is the other side that's like, okay, wait a second here.
Yeah,
And most of the times it's our wives. And why do you want to do this?
yeah,
Where are you going to do this at? What's the purpose, right? That's your B
yeah.
team. You gotta have a B team, man. You
Oh
gotta have
yeah,
a B team.
oh yeah. She's fantastic. Like, and the other great part about it is she's the one. Again, she never says no. Like, she's like, if you think you need it for the business and you're not going to go insane, then get it.
Yeah.
But I mean, did you think about this? Did you think, and I can't think of how many things that I haven't bought because I come here, I'm just like, got to do this. I just have to do this.
Yeah.
And then, spending 5 minutes talking to her, I'm just like, okay, I'm an idiot. Why would I have ever done that? I just about spend, $1,200 on this thing that now after talking to you for 5 minutes, like, oh yeah, I don't really need that.
Yeah, yeah, we need them, man. That's what
Oh,
we need them for sometimes.
for sure. For sure. Just to stop them from ourselves, really.
That's right. Hell yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
ain't
for
lying.
sure. So kind of how we'd like to wrap these things up and all this sort of thing. So how did you kind of learn about NLFX? When did you first hear about us and all that?
Yeah, so a good friend of mine here in the Detroit area, you probably know Derek Castenholz. He's the One Note Challenge guy from TikTok.
Hmm.
Um, he runs DJDC Productions out in Ann Arbor. Great company, great set of guy, great group of guys. I mean, I think when I first moved back to Michigan, I started, even doing some work with them. But he's the one that actually put me on NLFX at that time. I want to say that was like close to almost 10 years ago now, but at that time, God, I can't remember her name, but she's no longer with the company. She just recently left. That's who I was
Katie?
dealing. I think it was KD.
Okay.
Yeah. That's who I was dealing with every now and then. I'll be honest, I'll be transparent. I mean, NLFX wasn't the only company I was buying from, but over the
We
years,
gotta we gotta go. This thing is just no, I'm just kidding.
yeah, sorry.
No, I'm just
No,
teasing.
NLFX is the best. But no, that what I was getting at is that over the years, after talking to Ben and just having these calls and just understanding who he is as a business owner and what he does for his clients, I feel is very similar to how I treat my clients. As we were saying earlier, we want to make sure that people feel like you're being there for them. Um, Even though I messaged Ben a few weeks ago and I got in touch with you and I needed stuff from you, you were very accommodating. You know, Ben wasn't just like, I'm too busy. I'm sorry, I can't help. He was like, I'm too busy. I'm sorry, I can't help, but here's Kyle. You know,
Yeah.
so these are the things that really draw me to people and businesses, and that's probably why I'm going to be using you guys for pretty much any gear I need moving forward.
And we greatly appreciate that. And all kidding aside, we know that we can't be the one stop shop for absolutely everything
Yeah,
for everybody. We want to be, but obviously we understand that there's certain limitations to anything any business can do. So, um, I really appreciate everything that you said on that sort of thing. And is it that customer service thing that kind of keeps bringing you back to NLFX and just kept over those years, just you know,
Yeah, customer service, not only that, but the knowledge. And if you can kind of remember our conversation going back and forth, I'll be the first to admit, man, I'm not like an audio like whiz or anything, but sometimes I need a little bit of guidance. You guys are the experts. You hire people to do a job, they're the experts. You get the job done. That's how things work in this world, right? So
Yeah.
that's really why I keep coming back, is because I know if I have a question or if I don't know how to do something, that you guys are likely going to have the answer.
No, that's awesome. We greatly appreciate that, and thank you so much, Chris, for being on here with me. I really appreciate it. When we were sitting down and putting this together, you were definitely one of the people on my list that I wanted to get on. So,
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
absolutely, no, thank you so much. I've been so lucky to meet so many awesome people going through, to DJ conferences, and obviously now working for NLFX. There's just so many great people in our community, and I really want to get out there and highlight them, as many of them as we can. Um, so, again, I appreciate it. Do you want to shout out any socials or anything like that? If anybody has any questions for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, if Instagram is probably one of my most visited, I guess, sites. I'm
Okay.
not really on TikTok too often. Obviously, we do some stuff on there just for business, but at DJ Chris London, it's just DJ CHRIS London, like the city, and that's my Instagram. So yeah, just hit me up, folks.
Hey, hit them up on Instagram. So, again, thank you guys so much for watching another episode of the Soundstage. Again, great thanks to Chris for joining us, and we'll see y'all next week. Take care.